She slid off her wedding ring before every girls' night, every club, every quick dinner with friends. When I asked, she laughed. I'm such a forgetful mess. But you don't forget a ring. You remove it when you want to look available. This time, I was ready. My name is Nathan Cole, and I count pills for a living. Night shift pharmacy technician at St. Vincent's Regional Hospital, 11 at night until 7 in the morning, 4 nights a week. It's the kind of job that teaches you to notice patterns, pill counts that don't match, prescriptions that seem too frequent, the small details that reveal larger truths. I should have applied those same skills at home. Vanessa and I met 8 years ago at a friend's birthday party. She was magnetic, the kind of woman who walked into a room and rearranged its gravity. Everyone orbited around her, and somehow, impossibly, she chose to orbit around me, the quiet pharmacy student with the dry jokes and the steady hands. She said I made her feel calm. She said I was her anchor. For 6 years of marriage, I believed her. The ring thing started about 4 months ago. Small moments at first, easy to dismiss. We'd be getting ready to go out, her finishing her makeup, me tying my shoes, and I'd notice her sliding her wedding ring off and dropping it into her purse like it was loose change. The first time I asked, she laughed and called herself a forgetful mess. She said she'd taken it off to wash her hands, to put on lotion, to adjust a broken nail. Then she kissed my cheek and told me not to overthink it. So I didn't. I wanted to be the calm husband, the trusting one, the man who didn't police his wife's jewelry choices. I let it slide, but it kept happening. Before a girls' night, before a club, before just a quick dinner with friends. If I reminded her about the ring, she made it a joke. Bad memory, silly habits, nothing serious, and somehow it always worked. Her laugh was disarming. Her explanations were smooth. Her kiss on my cheek was reassuring. I wanted to believe her. Belief was easier than suspicion. Then I realized I hadn't seen that ring on her finger in weeks. She didn't forget sometimes anymore. She just stopped wearing it. The band sat in her jewelry box like an artifact from a different era, gathering dust while she gathered momentum towards something I didn't want to name. The moment that broke me was a Friday evening in October. Vanessa was packing for a weekend trip with her friends. Girls' getaway, she called it. A cabin by the lake, wine and gossip and relaxation. She'd been talking about it for weeks with the kind of excitement she used to reserve for our anniversaries. I watched her zip up her suitcase, smelling the perfume she'd sprayed too liberally, noting the new dress with tags still attached that she'd slipped into her bag. A dress from a boutique she'd told me was too expensive for us when I'd suggested shopping there for her birthday. Apparently it wasn't too expensive for someone. She checked her reflection one more time, adjusting her hair, practicing her smile. Then she turned to leave. No ring. I asked her straight, "Why are you leaving without it?" She rolled her eyes, an expression I'd once found endearing and now recognized as dismissive. "I forgot, Nathan. I'll put it on when I come back. I promise." Like a ring was something you wore only when it was convenient. Like our marriage was a costume she put on for certain audiences and removed when the performance wasn't required. "A wedding ring isn't heavy, Vanessa." She paused at the door, her hand on the suitcase handle. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you don't forget it by accident every time you want attention. You remove it on purpose when you want to look available." I kept my voice calm, the same tone I used when explaining medication interactions to confused patients. "You remove it when you want strangers to believe you're free." Something flickered across her face. Not guilt. I'd stopped expecting guilt months ago. Irritation, the annoyance of being caught in a pattern she thought was invisible. "You're being paranoid." "I'm being observant. There's a difference." She stared at me for a long moment. I could see her calculating which excuse to deploy, which deflection would work best, how to manage the situation without changing her behavior, but I was done being managed. "Don't worry about wearing it anymore," I said quietly. "Keep living without it, and without me." Her face went blank. "What?" "I don't want a wife who practices being single." The words hung in the air between us. Outside, I could hear a car horn, neighbors talking, the normal sounds of a Friday evening in suburbia. Inside, something was ending. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For once, she had no prepared response. No smooth deflection, no charming laugh. "Nathan, you're overreacting. It's just a ring. It doesn't mean..." "It means everything. And the fact that you don't understand that tells me everything I need to know." She left anyway. Of course she did. The suitcase was packed, the friends were waiting, the weekend was planned. She wasn't going to cancel because her husband had finally noticed what she'd been doing for months. But she looked shaken as she walked to her car. Less confident, like the ground beneath her had shifted unexpectedly. Good. It was about to shift a lot more. 5 minutes after her car disappeared around the corner, my phone started exploding. Texts, calls, voicemails, a flood of digital panic. Heart emojis and pleading words and promises that meant nothing. Nathan, please call me. I can explain. It's not what you think. I love you. Please don't do anything stupid. We can talk about this. 27 messages in 5 minutes. Our entire marriage, I'd never received that much attention from her. Funny how that works. You spend years being steady and reliable and present, and you get taken for granted. You threaten to leave, and suddenly you're the center of her universe. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I sat in our living room, the house we'd bought together, the furniture we'd chosen together, the life we'd built together, and let myself feel the full weight of what I now knew to be true. My wife was having an affair. I didn't have proof yet, not the concrete kind. But I had something more reliable. The accumulated evidence of 100 small betrayals, the missing ring, the new perfume, the dresses I'd never seen, the excitement for trips that didn't include me, the distraction when we were together, like her mind was always somewhere else, somewhere with someone else. The question was what to do about it. I could confront her directly, demand answers, give her a chance to lie more convincingly. I could rage and threaten and make a scene that would accomplish nothing. I could hire a private investigator and spend money I didn't have on confirmation of something I already knew, or I could do what I did best: observe, document, and wait for the right moment to act. I chose option 3. I got up from the couch and walked to my desk, opened my laptop, created a new folder labeled Evidence. Then I started typing notes about everything I'd observed over the past 4 months: dates, times, behaviors, patterns. A wedding ring weighs about 6 grams. I'd looked it up once, curious about the metal content. 6 grams of gold or platinum, or whatever alloy we'd chosen when we stood at that altar and made promises we apparently had different interpretations of. 6 grams, that's what she'd been discarding. That's what I'd been ignoring, not anymore. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Vanessa. Please, Nathan, I'm begging you, just answer me. I read it, screenshot it, added it to the evidence folder. Then I thought about my neighbor Greg. He worked from home, spent most of his days in his office with a clear view of the street. More importantly, he had a Ring doorbell camera that faced his front porch and happened to capture a perfect angle on my driveway. Greg and I weren't close friends, but we were friendly. He borrowed my leaf blower sometimes. I helped him troubleshoot his home network once. We waved when we saw each other, made small talk about weather and sports and the annoyances of suburban living. He'd also made comments a few times. Casual things. Saw you working late again last night, when I'd actually been at the hospital. Your wife's been busy, lots of visitors when you're gone. I'd dismissed those comments as innocent observations, neighborhood small talk, the background noise of communal living. Now I wondered if Greg had been trying to tell me something. I pulled up his contact information, then stopped. It was 9 o'clock on a Friday night. Showing up at his door asking for doorbell footage would look desperate, would confirm suspicions he might have, would make me the neighborhood gossip topic before I was ready. Better to wait until tomorrow. Approach him casually. Let him offer what he knew without making it seem like an interrogation. Patience, observation, precision. The same skills that made me good at my job would make me good at this. I closed my laptop and walked to the kitchen. Poured myself a drink, bourbon, neat, the good stuff I saved for special occasions. This seemed to qualify, though not in the way I'd originally intended. Through the kitchen window, I could see the houses on our street. Lights on in living rooms, families settling in for Friday night, normal lives proceeding normally. I used to think we were one of them. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. Tomorrow, I would start gathering real evidence. I would talk to Greg, review his footage, see what my nights at work had actually looked like from the outside. I would find out who was visiting my house, what car they drove, how long they stayed, and then I would decide what to do with that information. But tonight, I just sat in my empty house and let myself feel the full scope of the betrayal. The anger, the hurt, the strange, cold clarity that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. Vanessa thought she was on a girls' trip, enjoying her weekend, managing her paranoid husband with a few apologetic texts. She had no idea what was coming. I finished my bourbon and went to bed. Tomorrow would be a busy day, the ring was off, and this time, I wasn't putting it back on either. I woke up Saturday morning to 43 unread messages from Vanessa. Each one more desperate than the last, cycling through the full emotional spectrum: apologetic, defensive, angry, pleading, back to apologetic. I read them all, screenshot every single one, and added them to my evidence folder. Not one of them actually denied having an affair. She talked around it, promised we could work through this, assured me I was misunderstanding the situation. But she never once said the words I hadn't done anything wrong, because she couldn't. We both knew it. I showered, dressed, made coffee. Normal Saturday morning routine, except nothing was normal anymore. The house felt different, emptier somehow, even though Vanessa being gone for a weekend was nothing new. What had changed was my understanding of what her absences actually meant. At 10 o'clock, I walked over to Greg's house. Greg Patel was a creature of habit. Saturday mornings meant coffee on his front porch, laptop open, catching up on emails before his wife dragged him to whatever suburban activity she'd planned for the weekend. I found him exactly where I expected, settled into his Adirondack chair with a mug that said, "World's Okayest IT Guy." He looked up when I approached, and something shifted in his expression. Sympathy, maybe, or the discomfort of someone who knows more than they want to. "Nathan, hey." He set down his laptop. "How's it going?" "Been better." I stopped at the edge of his porch, hands in my pockets. "Got a few minutes?" "Sure. Sarah's at yoga until noon. What's up?" I considered how to approach this. Direct was probably best. Greg wasn't the type for subtlety, and neither was I. "You mentioned a while back that Vanessa's had visitors when I'm working nights. I was wondering if you could tell me more about that." Greg's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Surprise that I was asking. Relief that he didn't have to dance around it anymore. And underneath it all, the grimace of a man about to deliver bad news. "I was wondering when you'd come by," he said quietly. "There's something you should see." He led me inside to his home office, a converted spare bedroom with 3 monitors, a standing desk, and the organized chaos of someone who spent too much time in front of screens. He pulled up the Ring app on his computer and started scrolling through archived footage. "I wasn't spying on you," he said, not looking at me. "The camera just faces that direction. But I started noticing patterns about a month ago. A car showing up late, always when your truck wasn't in the driveway, leaving early morning before you'd get home from your shift." "What kind of car?" "Black BMW. Nice one? The kind that costs more than my annual salary." He found the file he was looking for and clicked play. This was Tuesday night, around midnight. The footage was grainy but clear enough. My driveway, lit by the street lamp, empty except for Vanessa's silver Lexus. Then headlights appeared as a black sedan pulled in. A man got out, tall, athletic build, moving with the confidence of someone who knew he belonged there. He walked to my front door. Vanessa opened it before he could knock. She was wearing something silky, short, definitely not her usual loungewear. They embraced in the doorway, the kind of embrace that erased any doubt about their relationship. Then they went inside. The door closed. Greg fast-forwarded. He left at 5:15, about 45 minutes before you usually get home. I watched the man exit my house, adjusting his jacket, checking his phone. He looked satisfied, relaxed, like he'd just finished a pleasant evening instead of destroying someone's marriage. "Can you make out the license plate?" Greg zoomed in. The image was pixelated, but 3 letters and 2 numbers were visible. "That's the best I can get, but I recognize the car. I've seen it parked at that new gym on Harbor Street. Elite Form or something. The owner drives it." Elite Form. I'd seen the signs around town, the aggressive marketing for a boutique fitness experience. Vanessa had mentioned joining a gym recently, said she wanted to get in shape, feel better about herself. I'd encouraged her, thinking it was a healthy outlet. Now I understood what kind of outlet it actually was. "The guy who owns it," I said. "Do you know his name?" "Morrison, I think. Derek Morrison. He's been all over the local business pages, big expansion plans, networking events, that kind of thing." Greg hesitated. "I've seen his car at other houses too, Nathan. Not just yours." "What do you mean?" "Tuesday nights, he parks over on Maple Drive. The HOA president's house, the Thorntons. I always thought it was some kind of business meeting, but..." He shrugged. "Same pattern. Late arrival, early departure, when the husband's not home." I processed that. Derek Morrison wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He was running a circuit. Multiple women, multiple houses, all while their husbands worked late or traveled. My wife wasn't special to him. She was just Tuesday. "I've got footage from 3 different nights this week," Greg said. "I can send you all of it. Timestamps, everything." He finally looked at me directly. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I should have said something sooner. I just didn't know how." "You're saying something now. That's what matters." He transferred the files to a flash drive and handed it to me. 3 nights of footage. Timestamps showing arrivals and departures. Visual confirmation of a man entering my home and leaving before dawn. It wasn't enough for a divorce court. I'd need more, but it was enough for me. I thanked Greg and walked back to my house. the flash drive heavy in my pocket. The neighborhood looked the same as always: manicured lawns, American flags, minivans in driveways. The perfect suburban facade hiding the same messy human dramas that played out everywhere. Inside, I plugged the drive into my laptop and watched all 3 videos. Same pattern each time. Derek's BMW arriving around midnight. Vanessa greeting him at the door, hours of nothing. Then Derek leaving, always before dawn, always with that satisfied walk. I paused on a frame that showed his face clearly. Handsome, in an obvious way. Strong jaw, easy smile, the kind of teeth that suggested expensive orthodontics. He looked like every cologne advertisement I'd ever resented, all surface charm and manufactured confidence. I searched for him online. Derek Morrison, owner of Elite Form Fitness. His website featured a professional headshot, testimonials from satisfied clients, and a mission statement about transforming bodies and lives. His Instagram was full of workout videos, motivational quotes, and photos of him shaking hands with local business owners. In one photo, he was standing at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The banner behind him read, "Elite Form, coming soon to Harbor Street." The date was 3 months ago. The same month Vanessa started forgetting her ring. I kept scrolling. His social media showed a man obsessed with image. Every post calculated, every photo curated. But there were patterns beneath the polish. He was tagged frequently at the same upscale restaurants, always with different women, business dinners, the captions claimed, networking events, professional relationships. Sure they were. I saved screenshots of everything: his face, his car, his business, his patterns, added them to the evidence folder that was growing by the hour. My phone buzzed. Vanessa again. "Nathan, please just tell me you're okay. I'm worried about you." Worried, not worried about our marriage, about the affair, about the lies. Worried about me, meaning worried about what I might do, what I might say, who I might tell. I typed back, "I'm fine. Enjoy your trip." 3 dots appeared as she started typing. Then stopped, then started again. "Can we talk when I get back? Really talk? I know things have been hard lately and I want to fix this." Fix this. Like our marriage was a leaky faucet that just needed new washers. "Sure," I replied. "We'll talk." I put the phone down and pulled up Google Maps. Elite Form Fitness was a 15-minute drive from my house. According to their website, Saturday hours were 9 to 5. Derek Morrison would probably be there, pressing flesh with potential members, building his brand. I wanted to see him in person. Not confront him, not yet, but observe. Understand what I was dealing with. Know the enemy before the battle began. The gym was exactly what I expected. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive equipment arranged like art installations. The kind of place that charged 3 times normal rates because the lighting was flattering and the water bottles were branded. I parked across the street and watched for 20 minutes. Customers came and went, mostly women, mostly affluent. The yoga pants and designer sneakers crowd. Staff members in matching black polos greeted everyone with aggressive enthusiasm. Then Derek appeared. He emerged from a back office, all smiles and handshakes, working the room like a politician. He touched people when he talked to them, arms, shoulders, the small of backs, establishing intimacy, building connection. Everyone responded to him like plants responding to sunlight. I could see why Vanessa was drawn to him. He was everything I wasn't: loud, confident, physically imposing. The kind of man who walked into a room expecting to be noticed and was never disappointed. But I noticed something else, too. The way his eyes tracked around the room, calculating. The way his smile flickered off when he thought no one was looking. The way he checked his phone between conversations, maintaining multiple threads simultaneously. He wasn't charming, he was performing charm. There was a difference. Through the window, I saw him approach the front desk and speak to a woman there, young, professional, wearing the same black polo as the other staff. She nodded at whatever he said, her expression carefully neutral in a way that suggested she'd heard it all before. I took a photo of the gym exterior, the parking lot, Derek's BMW in its reserved space. Then I drove home. The evidence folder was getting fuller. Doorbell footage, social media screenshots, gym reconnaissance. A pattern was emerging, not just of an affair, but of a man who had systematized infidelity. Derek Morrison didn't just cheat with married women, he collected them. My wife was part of a collection. I spent the rest of the afternoon organizing what I had and planning what I needed. More confirmation of Derek's identity, understanding of his connection to Vanessa beyond the gym, and most importantly, insight into who else might know about this, who was covering for Vanessa, who was enabling the affair, who might be useful when the time came. That meant talking to Vanessa's friends, specifically her best friend Megan. Megan Hollister worked with Vanessa at the healthcare network. They had lunch together 3 times a week, texted constantly, shared everything. If Vanessa was having an affair, Megan knew about it. The question was what she'd done with that knowledge. I pulled up Megan's contact information. We'd met dozens of times at work events, dinner parties, the various social obligations of married life. She'd always been friendly, maybe too friendly in retrospect. The kind of person who asked probing questions under the guise of conversation. I texted her, "Hey Megan, do you have time to grab coffee tomorrow? I'm worried about Vanessa and could use some advice." The response came quickly. "Of course. I was actually going to reach out. How about 10 a.m. at the Riverside Cafe?" Too quickly, too eagerly. She already knew something was happening. The question was which side she was playing. Sunday morning was gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that matched my mood perfectly. I arrived at Riverside Cafe 10 minutes early, chose a table in the corner where I could watch the door, and ordered a black coffee I didn't really want. Megan arrived exactly on time, which told me she'd been waiting in her car. She was dressed casually but carefully, the kind of outfit that said, "I just threw this on," while clearly requiring 30 minutes to assemble. Her smile when she spotted me was warm, concerned, and completely practiced. "Nathan, hi." She slid into the seat across from me, immediately reaching out to touch my hand in a gesture of solidarity. "How are you holding up?" "Been better. Thanks for meeting me." "Of course. I've been worried about you both." She ordered a complicated drink, oat milk latte with an extra shot, light foam, specific temperature. The barista's eye roll was subtle but visible. "Vanessa called me last night. She's a mess." "Is she?" "She said you two had a fight before she left. Something about her ring?" Megan leaned forward, her expression shifting to sympathetic concern. "She thinks you're being paranoid about something. I told her she should just talk to you, but you know how she gets when she's stressed." I watched Megan's face carefully as she spoke. She was good, really good, at projecting earnest friendship. But there were tells. The way her eyes didn't quite match her smile, the slight hesitation before certain words, as if she was choosing them carefully from a prepared script. "How long have you known?" I asked. Megan's expression flickered. "Known what?" "About Vanessa and Derek Morrison." The silence that followed was fascinating to observe. I could see her running calculations. How much did I know? What could she admit? Which lies were salvageable? Her hand moved unconsciously to her phone, probably itching to text Vanessa a warning. "Nathan, I don't know what you think is happening, but—" "Megan." I kept my voice calm, the same tone I used with patients who needed difficult truths. "I have doorbell footage of Derek's car at my house 3 nights this week. I know about the gym, I know about the late nights, I know about the ring. What I don't know is how long you've been covering for her." Her face went through several stages of reaction before settling on something unexpected. Relief. Like she'd been carrying a weight she was glad to finally set down. "About 4 months," she said quietly. "Since the beginning." "Tell me everything." Megan took a long sip of her complicated drink, buying time. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, more honest than I'd ever heard it. "They met at the gym. Derek does this thing where he gives personal attention to new members. Makes them feel special, seen, like they're the only person in the room. Vanessa ate it up. She was vulnerable, feeling like her career had stalled, feeling like things at home were routine. Routine. The word stung more than I expected. Her word, not mine. She said you were comfortable together, but that's not the same as excited. Megan shrugged. "Derek is exciting. He's new and different, and he made her feel like the most interesting woman in the world. And you helped her hide it. I covered for her. Told you she was with me when she wasn't. Backed up her stories about work conferences and girls' nights." She met my eyes. "I'm not proud of it, Nathan. But she's my friend. What was I supposed to do?" "You could have told me." "And destroy her marriage? Make myself the villain?" Megan shook her head. I kept hoping she'd end it on her own. Come to her senses. But Derek has this hold on her. She's not thinking clearly. I processed that. The image of Vanessa as a victim didn't quite fit. She'd made choices, conscious ones, deliberate ones. But I filed Megan's perspective away for later examination. "These work conferences she's been attending, how many were real?" Megan looked uncomfortable. "The one last month in Austin was real, but the weekend in Denver? That was Derek. They stayed at the Ritz. Vanessa showed me pictures." She paused. "She was wearing this necklace I'd never seen before. Diamond pendant. She said Derek gave it to her after their first night together." A necklace. Another piece of jewelry I didn't know about, probably hidden in the same place she hid her wedding ring when she bothered to bring it home. What do you know about Derek? Beyond the gym? He's ambitious, charming, very good at making women feel special. Megan's tone shifted slightly. There are rumors, though, that Vanessa isn't his only interest. Someone told me he's been seen with the wife of one of his investors. I don't know if it's true. Greg had mentioned the same thing. Tuesday nights on Maple Drive, Derek Morrison was running a circuit, and my wife was just one stop. Does Vanessa know about the other women? I've tried to hint at it, but she doesn't want to hear it. She thinks what they have is special, different. Megan's voice carried a note of frustration. She's convinced he's going to leave his lifestyle behind for her, like she's the one who's going to change him. The delusion was almost sad. My wife, the marketing professional who analyzed consumer behavior for a living, had fallen for the oldest sales pitch in the book. She thought she was the customer when she was actually the product. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Can't wait to see you tonight. I have so much to tell you. I love you. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She was on a weekend trip with her lover, texting her husband about how much she loved him, probably while Derek was in the shower. What are you going to do? Megan asked, watching my face. I don't know yet. Are you going to confront her? Eventually, when I'm ready. Megan nodded slowly. Then her phone buzzed, and I caught a glimpse of the screen before she tilted it away. Vanessa's name. They were texting right now, probably about this very conversation. Let me guess, I said. She wants to know what I'm saying. Megan had the grace to look embarrassed. She asked me to find out how angry you are, what you know, whether you're going to do anything dramatic. And what are you going to tell her? She hesitated. I could see her weighing options, calculating angles. Megan wasn't covering for Vanessa out of pure friendship. There was something else going on, some benefit I hadn't identified yet. What do you want me to tell her? The question surprised me. It was the first honest thing she'd said since we sat down. Tell her I'm confused and hurt. Tell her I want to work things out. Tell her I'm not going to do anything crazy. I leaned forward. Tell her exactly what she wants to hear. Megan studied me for a long moment. You're planning something. I'm gathering information. There's a difference. She's my friend, Nathan. If you're going to hurt her, she hurt me first. But no, I'm not planning anything violent or illegal. I'm just not planning to be the clueless husband anymore. I stood up, dropping a $10 bill on the table. Thanks for the honesty. Parts of it, anyway. Nathan, wait. She grabbed my arm. There's something else. Something I probably shouldn't tell you. I waited. Derek's opening a second gym location. The grand opening is next Friday. Big party, lots of important people. Vanessa's been helping him with the marketing through her healthcare network connections. Megan paused. He's planning to announce a major sponsorship deal. Vanessa's company is supposed to be the sponsor. She's using her job to help her boyfriend's business? She thinks she's building a future with him. But Nathan... Megan lowered her voice. I've seen how Derek talks about her when she's not around. He calls her his healthcare connection, like she's a resource, not a person. The information clicked into place. Derek wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was using her. Her marketing expertise, her business connections, her access to healthcare network sponsorships. She thought she was in a romance. She was actually in a transaction. The grand opening, I said. Is it invitation only? It's a networking event. Anyone with connections to the local business community can show up. Megan tilted her head. Why? Just curious. I left Megan at the cafe and drove home, my mind racing. The affair had layers I hadn't expected. Derek Morrison wasn't a lovesick romantic stealing another man's wife. He was a predator who had identified a useful target and exploited her vulnerabilities. And Megan wasn't just a loyal friend covering for Vanessa. She was playing her own game, collecting information, positioning herself for something I couldn't quite see yet. Everyone had an angle. Everyone was calculating. It was time I started calculating too. When I got home, I found the house exactly as I'd left it. Empty, quiet, full of objects that no longer meant what I thought they meant. The couch where Vanessa and I used to watch movies together, the kitchen table where we'd shared 1,000 dinners, the bedroom where she'd welcomed another man while I counted pills at the hospital. I checked the shared tablet we kept in the living room, an iPad we used for recipes, music, controlling the smart home devices. It was connected to Vanessa's iCloud account, which meant photo uploads synced automatically. I opened the Photos app and navigated to the recent uploads. There they were, pictures from the girls' trip that was still supposedly in progress. A lakeside cabin, wine glasses, Vanessa laughing with friends. Innocent enough, except for the details. In one photo, a man's reflection was visible in the window behind Vanessa. Tall, athletic, unmistakable. In another, taken at what looked like a restaurant, a man's hand was visible at the edge of the frame. On the wrist, a distinctive watch I'd seen in Derek's Instagram photos. And in a third, uploaded just this morning, Vanessa was wearing a necklace, a diamond pendant, exactly as Megan had described. She was documenting her affair on our shared cloud account. Either she'd forgotten about the sync, or she didn't care enough to disable it. I screenshot everything, added it to the evidence folder. The collection was growing: doorbell footage, social media research, Megan's testimony, now photo evidence from Vanessa's own phone. The grand opening was Friday, 5 days away. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew where I was going to do it. A room full of Derek's business contacts, investors, and community connections. The perfect audience for whatever revelation I decided to make. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa. Heading home soon. I missed you. Can we please talk tonight? I promise everything will make sense. I typed back, of course. Drive safe. I love you. The lie came easier than expected. Maybe that's what betrayal does. It teaches you that words can be weapons, that promises are optional, that love is a performance as much as a feeling. Vanessa was about to learn that lesson too. She just didn't know it yet. Vanessa came home Sunday evening with gifts. A bottle of local wine from the lake region, a handmade candle that smelled like pine, a knitted scarf she claimed to have found at a craft fair. Peace offerings arranged strategically to demonstrate that she'd been thinking of me while she was gone. I accepted them with appropriate gratitude, watching her performance with new eyes. She was good at this: the casual affection, the thoughtful gestures, the seamless integration of lies into everyday conversation. I wondered how long she'd been practicing, how many other deceptions I'd missed over the years. I'm so glad to be home, she said, wrapping her arms around me in the kitchen. I missed you so much. She was wearing her ring. I noticed that immediately, the gold band back on her finger, restored to its proper place now that she was playing wife again. The pendant necklace was notably absent, probably hidden in her purse, or left at Derek's place for safekeeping. I missed you too, I said, and I was surprised to find a kernel of truth in the words. I had missed her, not the woman standing in front of me, but the woman I'd thought she was. The version of Vanessa who existed before Derek Morrison, before the lies, before I learned that our entire marriage had been more fragile than I'd ever imagined. That woman might never have existed at all. I was mourning a fiction. We had dinner together, made small talk about her trip, discussed nothing important. She asked about my weekend. I told her I'd done yard work and caught up on sleep. She seemed relieved by my calmness, probably interpreting it as acceptance rather than strategy. That night she reached for me in bed. I pretended to be tired from poor sleep, rolled over, and felt her disappointment radiate through the mattress. A small victory, petty but satisfying. Monday brought a return to routine. Vanessa left for work at 8. I had until 11 before my hospital shift started. Plenty of time for reconnaissance. I drove to St. Vincent's early, parked in the staff garage, and waited. According to Vanessa's calendar, which synced to the shared tablet, she had a doctor's appointment at 2 o'clock. No doctor's name, no specialty, no reason given. I had a theory about what that appointment actually was. My shift started normally. Counting pills, checking prescriptions, the familiar rhythm of pharmaceutical work. But at 1:30, I told my supervisor I needed to step out for a personal matter. She didn't question it. I had accumulated enough goodwill over the years to take occasional liberties. I positioned myself in the parking structure on level 3, where I had a clear view of the visitor entrance. The concrete was cold, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and I felt like a stranger in my own life. A week ago, I'd been a man who trusted his wife. Now I was hiding in a parking garage, waiting to confirm what I already knew. At 1:50, a black BMW pulled into the visitor section. The license plate matched the partial I'd seen in Greg's footage. Derek Morrison stepped out, checked his phone, leaned against his car with the casual confidence of a man who owned every space he occupied. 5 minutes later, Vanessa emerged from the hospital's main entrance. She looked around, checking for witnesses, I realized, then walked quickly toward the visitor section. When she reached Derek, her entire body language changed. Softer, lighter, younger somehow. She touched his arm, laughed at something he said, tilted her face up for a kiss. In the parking structure of the hospital where I worked, where my colleagues might see, where my reputation lived, where I had spent 10 years building a career based on reliability and discretion. The kiss was brief but unmistakable. Then they got into his car together and drove away. Her doctor's appointment was apparently mobile. I stood in the shadows of level 3 and felt something crystallize inside me. Not rage, that would come later, but clarity. Cold, sharp, useful clarity. I walked back to Derek's parking space and photographed it. The visitor pass on his dashboard. The spot number. The timestamp on my phone showing 1:55 p.m. Then I went back to work. Finished my shift. Counted pills with steady hands while my mind worked through scenarios. The grand opening was Friday, 4 days away. At 3 o'clock, I texted Derek Morrison. I'd found his number through his gym's website, a direct line for partnership inquiries. My message was simple. You're Derek Morrison. I'm Nathan Cole. I believe you know my wife. The response came 20 minutes later. I think you have me confused with someone else. I train a lot of clients. I typed back, black BMW, my driveway, 3 nights this week. I have footage. A longer pause this time. Then, we should talk, in person. I agree. Meet me at the hospital parking structure. Level 3, 3:30. The drive to the hospital was short. Derek was probably still in the area, probably still with my wife somewhere. I got there first, positioned myself near the stairwell, and waited. He arrived at 3:35, pulling into the same visitor spot he'd used earlier. When he stepped out, I got my first close look at the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. He was exactly what his photos suggested. Tall, fit, aggressively handsome, the kind of man who'd never been told no, who expected the world to arrange itself around his desires. He moved through space like he was being photographed, always aware of angles, always performing. Nathan Cole, he said, extending his hand as if we were meeting at a networking event. Derek Morrison, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I didn't take his hand. There's no misunderstanding. His smile flickered but held. Look, I understand how this might look. Vanessa and I are colleagues. She's been helping with marketing for my gym expansion. Sometimes that requires meetings outside normal hours. Meetings? Is that what we're calling it? I don't know what you think you've seen, but I've seen your car at my house at midnight. I've seen you kissing my wife in this parking structure 2 hours ago. I've seen photos from her girls' trip where you're visible in the background. I stepped closer. I've seen enough. Derek's expression shifted. The charm dropped away, replaced by something harder, more honest. Fine. You know, what do you want? I want you to understand something. I kept my voice calm, controlled, the same tone I used when explaining medication interactions to anxious patients. You think you're in control of this situation. You think you can manage me the way you've managed everything else in your life, but you're wrong. Is that a threat? It's information. You should pay attention to it. Derek laughed, a short, dismissive sound. Nathan, let me explain how this works. Your wife came to me. She was bored, unfulfilled, looking for something more than what you were giving her. I didn't steal her. I just showed her what she was missing. The words were calculated to hurt, and they did. But I'd prepared myself for this, armored my emotions for the confrontation. You didn't show her anything. You identified a vulnerable target and exploited her insecurities for your own benefit. The sponsorship deal she's arranging, that's why you're really interested. She's a resource to you, not a person. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, that I'd figured out that much. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've done this before. Other women, other marriages, other networking opportunities disguised as romance. I smiled without warmth. You have a pattern, Derek, and patterns eventually catch up with people. He stepped toward me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same scent I'd noticed on Vanessa's clothes for months. Let me give you some advice, Nathan. Walk away. Accept that your marriage is over and move on with your life. Fighting this will only make you look pathetic. Thanks for the advice. Here's some for you. I stepped even closer, matching his aggression. Stay away from my wife. End it now, cleanly, and we can all pretend this never happened. Or what? Or I'll make sure everyone at your grand opening on Friday knows exactly who they're celebrating. The threat landed. I could see him calculating. The investors, the business contacts, the carefully cultivated reputation. One scandal could unravel everything he'd built. You wouldn't dare. Try me. We stood there for a long moment, 2 men in a parking structure measuring each other. Then Derek smiled, a cold, confident expression that told me he'd decided I was bluffing. You're out of your league, Nathan. Stick to counting pills and leave the big decisions to people who know how to make them. He turned and walked toward his car. I let him go 3 steps, then called out, Derek. He turned. I shoved him. One motion, controlled but forceful, sending him stumbling back against his BMW. His shoulder hit the driver's side mirror, and he caught himself on the hood, shock flashing across his face. What the hell? That's for coming to my house. I stepped back, hands at my sides. Next time, there won't be a conversation first. A security guard appeared at the far end of the level, responding to movement sensors or cameras. Derek straightened, adjusting his jacket, trying to recover his composure. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "No, it's not." Security approached, asking if everything was okay. Derek waved them off with a story about a misunderstanding between old friends. The guard looked skeptical, but accepted it. Two well-dressed men in a hospital parking structure didn't fit the profile for real trouble. Derek got in his car and drove away. I watched him go, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel. He'd underestimated me. They all had. Vanessa, Derek, Megan, everyone who'd looked at the quiet pharmacy tech and seen someone easy to deceive. That was about to change. I walked back to work, finished my shift, and drove home to find Vanessa cooking dinner like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, played the role of devoted wife with practiced ease. I played along, smiled at the right moments, asked about her afternoon, pretended I didn't know where she'd really been. 4 more days until the grand opening. 4 more days until Derek Morrison learned what happened when you underestimated the quiet ones. Tuesday brought a shift in the atmosphere. Vanessa was nervous, though she tried to hide it. She checked her phone constantly, startled at small sounds, watched me with a wariness that hadn't been there before. Derek had told her about our confrontation. I was certain of it. Good. Let her worry. I left for my shift that evening with a kiss on her cheek and a promise to be home by 8. Normal husband behavior, normal routine. But instead of driving to the hospital, I parked at a coffee shop 2 miles away and waited. My phone buzzed at 7:30, a text from an unknown number. "This is Tammy Reed from Elite Form. You came by the gym on Saturday. I have information you might want. Can we meet? Tammy." The woman at the front desk, the one with the carefully neutral expression when I'd mentioned Vanessa. I'd noticed something in her face that day. Not judgment, but recognition. Like she'd seen this story before. I texted back, "Where and when?" "A Coffee Bean on Harbor, 8 o'clock. I was already close. I walked in at 7:55 and found her in a back booth, nursing a chai latte with both hands. She looked different outside the gym uniform, younger, more tired, carrying a weight that her professional smile usually concealed. "Mr. Cole." She gestured to the seat across from her. "Thanks for coming." "Nathan is fine, and thank you for reaching out." I wasn't sure if I should. She stirred her drink without looking at me. Derek doesn't like it when employees talk about his personal business, but what he does isn't right, and someone should know. "What does he do exactly?" Tammy looked up, and I saw years of observation in her eyes. "He targets married women, specifically married women with connections, money, business contacts, social influence. He makes them feel special, makes them think they're the only one, and then he uses what they can offer until something better comes along." "How many women?" "That I know of? At least 5 in the 2 years I've worked there. Probably more before my time." She shook her head. "There was a woman last year, Patricia something. Her husband was an investor in Derek's first location. When the affair came out, the husband didn't pull his investment. He actually increased it, like he was buying Derek's silence or buying him off entirely. Derek monetized the affair. That's one way to put it. The husband paid 6 figures to make it go away. Patricia left town. Derek bought a new car." Tammy's voice carried disgust. He brags about it sometimes when he thinks no one's listening, calls it his premium client services. I processed that. Derek wasn't just a cheater, he was running a system. Identify wealthy or connected women, seduce them, extract value, and either maintain the affair for ongoing benefits or cash out when the situation demanded. My wife was part of that system. The sponsorship deal she was arranging was her value. Once that was secured, Derek would either keep her useful or discard her for the next target. "The woman he's with now," I said. "Besides my wife. The blonde I saw him with at dinner last week." Tammy nodded slowly. "Rebecca Thornton. Her husband is one of Derek's investors for the new location. She doesn't know about Vanessa. Vanessa doesn't know about her." She paused. "Neither of them knows about the third one." "There's a third?" "A doctor at St. Vincent's. Started about 3 weeks ago. Derek likes to diversify." She said it with bitter humor. "He calls them his portfolio, like they're stocks he's managing." "A doctor at my hospital. Someone I might pass in the hallways, someone whose prescriptions I might fill." Derek had infiltrated every part of my life without me knowing. Why are you telling me this? Tammy was quiet for a moment. Because 2 years ago, I was almost one of them. I was new, impressed by the business, flattered by his attention. He started with the compliments, the special treatment, the late-night conversations about my dreams and goals. She met my eyes. I was 26 and stupid, and I almost fell for it. Then I saw how he treated the woman before me, dropped her the second she wasn't useful anymore, cried to me about how he'd used her. She had to leave the gym, leave the neighborhood, basically leave her whole life. What stopped you? I saw the pattern. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. She leaned forward. Your wife is in deep, Nathan. She thinks she's special. She thinks he loves her. But to Derek, she's the healthcare marketing connection. Once that sponsorship deal closes at the grand opening, her usefulness decreases significantly. What happens then? Best case? He slowly ghosts her, makes her feel like the failure, moves on to the next target. She's left humiliated, but functional. Tammy paused. Worst case? She becomes inconvenient, makes demands, threatens to expose him, doesn't accept the fade out gracefully. Then Derek gets creative about protecting himself. Creative how? He has a lawyer on retainer. Very good at making accusers look unstable. Very good at finding embarrassing information and using it strategically. She shrugged. The woman before Patricia? She tried to warn Patricia about what was coming. Derek's lawyer sent her a cease and desist claiming she was a stalker with a history of mental illness. None of it was true, but the threat was enough. She shut up. Patricia walked right into the trap. I sat back, reorganizing my understanding of the situation. This wasn't just an affair I was dealing with. It was a predator with a system, legal protection, and years of practice. The grand opening on Friday, I said. What's supposed to happen? Derek announces the new location, thanks his investors, reveals the healthcare network sponsorship. Big press moment, lots of photos, everyone congratulating him on his success. Tammy's expression hardened. It's supposed to be his coronation, the moment he cements himself as a legitimate businessman instead of a gym bro with delusions of grandeur. And after that? After that, Vanessa becomes less essential. The deal is done, the connection is made, she's served her purpose. She hesitated. I heard him on the phone yesterday, talking to someone about managing the transition. I think he's already planning how to end things with her. My wife was about to be discarded. Part of me, a small petty part, felt satisfaction at that. She'd chosen this. She'd thrown away our marriage for a man who saw her as a stepping stone. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I'd married, felt something closer to pity. You said there's a third woman, the doctor. What do you know about her? Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. She works in the ER, just got divorced, recently joined the gym. Derek spotted her within a week. Tammy pulled out her phone, showed me an Instagram photo. He's been personally training her for 3 weeks now. Late sessions, private studio time, the usual playbook. I recognized the name. Dr. Okonkwo had signed off on prescriptions I'd filled. We'd never spoken directly, but I'd seen her in the hallways. Tall, confident, the kind of presence that commanded attention. She seemed too smart to fall for someone like Derek. But then again, so had Vanessa. Does she know about the others? No. Derek keeps his women compartmentalized. Different schedules, different locations, different stories. Tammy pocketed her phone. But all 3 of them will be at the grand opening. Vanessa as the marketing partner, Rebecca as the investor's wife, Sarah as a new member and special guest. It's going to be a minefield. A minefield, or an opportunity. What would happen, I said slowly, if all 3 of them found out about each other at the same time, in public? Tammy stared at me. It would be chaos. Derek's entire image is built on being charming and trustworthy. If 3 women realized simultaneously that he'd been playing them all, his reputation would collapse. His business might collapse. Investors don't like surprises. They really don't like finding out the guy managing their money is also managing their wives. She paused. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that Derek Morrison has built his entire empire on lies and manipulation, and I'm thinking that empires built on lies tend to fall hard when the truth comes out. Tammy studied me for a long moment. If you're planning something, I want to help. Why? Because I've spent 2 years watching him destroy people and get away with it. Because the woman he discarded, the one before Patricia, was my friend. Because he's a predator who hides behind charm and contracts, and someone needs to stop him. What can you do? I have access to the gym's systems, the AV setup for the grand opening, the guest list, the scheduling software. If you need something to happen at a specific moment, I can make it happen. I thought about that. An ally inside Derek's operation. Access to the technical infrastructure of his big night. The ability to control timing, to shape the revelation. The grand opening presentation, I said. How does it work? Derek gives a speech, thanks everyone, unveils the sponsorship. There's a slideshow, promotional photos, testimonials, the usual marketing stuff. It runs from a shared drive that all the staff can access. A shared drive. Grand opening materials. Anyone with the login can add or modify content. She smiled grimly, including me. The outline of a plan began forming in my mind. Not confrontation, not just confrontation, something more elegant, more comprehensive, more devastating. I need time to think this through, I said, but stay in touch. And Tammy, thank you for telling me the truth. Someone should. Derek's gotten away with this for too long. She stood, gathering her things. Be careful, Nathan. He's not as stupid as he seems, and he fights dirty when he feels threatened. So do I. She left. I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, mapping out possibilities. 3 women, none of whom knew about the others. A grand opening designed to cement Derek's success. A shared presentation drive with minimal security. And a husband who had been underestimated by everyone. I drove home to find Vanessa asleep on the couch, her phone clutched in her hand. She'd been waiting for me, probably rehearsing whatever conversation she thought we needed to have. I covered her with a blanket and went to bed alone. 3 more days until Friday. 3 more days until Derek Morrison learned what happened when you built your empire on other people's pain. Wednesday night, I followed Derek. It wasn't planned, or at least not consciously. I'd finished my shift at 7, driven home on autopilot, and found myself parked outside Elite Form instead of in my own driveway. The gym was lit up like a showroom, bodies moving behind the floor-to-ceiling windows, Derek's BMW gleaming in its reserved spot. I waited, watched, counted the minutes like I counted pills. At 9:30, Derek emerged with a woman. Not Vanessa. This one was blonde, elegant, wearing workout clothes that had never seen actual sweat. Rebecca Thornton, the investor's wife. They stood close together in the parking lot, his hand on her lower back, her face tilted up toward his. The same moves, the same choreography, the same script. He was running the playbook in real time, and I had a front row seat. They got into his BMW together. I followed at a distance, keeping 2 or 3 cars between us, using the skills I'd developed from years of late-night driving to and from the hospital. Derek drove confidently, never checking his mirrors, never suspecting he was being watched. Why would he? He was the predator. Predators don't expect to become prey. They stopped at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place with valet parking and a 3-month waiting list. I parked across the street, watched them enter arm in arm, and photographed everything. His car, the restaurant entrance, the timestamp on my phone. Then I waited. At 11, they emerged. Different energy now. Looser. More intimate. Derek walked her to his car, opened the door for her like a gentleman, then drove toward the adjacent parking structure. I followed on foot, keeping to the shadows. The structure was mostly empty at this hour, their footsteps echoing off concrete as they walked toward the elevator. But they didn't get in. Instead, Derek pressed Rebecca against the wall beside the elevator doors, kissing her with the kind of urgency that suggested this wasn't their first time. I photographed them from behind a pillar. The flash was off, my phone silent. They were too occupied to notice me anyway. Then Derek looked up, not at me, past me toward the entrance ramp. Headlights. Another car entering the structure, its engine echoing loudly in the confined space. Derek stepped back from Rebecca, straightening his jacket, assuming the posture of innocent conversation. But his eyes kept scanning, and this time they found me. Recognition flashed across his face. Surprise, then anger, then calculation. He said something to Rebecca, probably an excuse, probably convincing, and started walking toward me. His stride was aggressive, purposeful, a man defending his territory. I didn't run. Nathan. He stopped 10 feet away, keeping his voice controlled but tight. Are you following me now? That's called stalking. I'm in a public parking structure. That's called being in public. With a camera, taking pictures. Pictures of a man cheating on his wife. In public? I shrugged. Seems newsworthy. Rebecca had followed Derek, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. Derek, who is this? Nobody important. Derek kept his eyes on me. Just a disgruntled husband who can't accept that his marriage is over. Disgruntled. I tasted the word. Is that what you call it? I'd call it observant. For example, I've observed that you're not just sleeping with my wife, you're sleeping with her too. I nodded toward Rebecca. And at least one other woman that I know of. Quite the portfolio you're managing. Rebecca's face went pale. What is he talking about? He's delusional, Derek said quickly. His wife and I are business colleagues. He's invented some fantasy about an affair because he can't handle that she's outgrown him. Business colleagues who take romantic trips together? Business colleagues who kiss in hospital parking lots? I pulled out my phone, started scrolling through photos. I have documentation. Timestamps, locations, witnesses. Your husband might be interested in seeing some of these, Rebecca. She took a step back from Derek, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder. Suspicion. Derek, what is going on? Nothing. He's lying. He's desperate and pathetic, and... I turned the phone toward Rebecca, showing her a photo from Vanessa's cloud account. Derek and Vanessa at the lakeside cabin, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera like a couple on vacation. That was taken last weekend, I said, while he was supposedly at a business conference. Rebecca stared at the photo, then at Derek, then at me. You told me you were in Chicago, she said quietly. I was. This is obviously photoshopped. He's trying to... That's the cabin my family owns. Her voice had gone cold. On Lake Harmony. I recognized the fireplace in the background. Derek's composure cracked. Just for a second, but I saw it. The moment when his carefully constructed lies began colliding with each other. Rebecca, let me explain. Don't. She stepped further away from him. Don't say another word. She walked toward her car, a Mercedes that had been parked near the elevator. Derek started after her, then stopped, turning back to me with fury in his eyes. You think you've accomplished something? You haven't. Rebecca's emotional, but she'll calm down. She'll realize you're manipulating her. Maybe. Or maybe she'll talk to her husband, the investor whose money is funding your expansion. I smiled without warmth. How do you think that conversation will go? Derek stepped toward me, his fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing. Part of me wanted him to. It would make everything simpler. Justified self-defense, witnesses in a public structure, the moral high ground secured. But he stopped himself, took a breath, reassembled his mask. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. I have lawyers, resources, connections. You're a pharmacy tech with a failing marriage and a grudge. This won't end well for you. Maybe not, but it's definitely not going to end well for you. I turned and walked toward the stairwell. Behind me, I heard Derek punch something, a pillar, a wall, something solid. The sound of a man losing control. Good. I drove home with my heart pounding and my hands steady. The confrontation had escalated things, but it had also destabilized Derek's carefully managed network. Rebecca knew now. She might tell her husband. The investor might start asking questions. Cracks were forming. All I had to do was widen them. When I got home, Vanessa was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and an expression I couldn't read. Where have you been? Work ran late. The lie came easily now. Supply chain issues. You know how it is? She studied me for a long moment. Derek called me. He said you've been following him, harassing him. He's talking about a restraining order. Is he? Nathan, this has to stop. She stood up, her voice rising. Whatever you think is happening, whatever paranoid fantasy you've constructed, it's not real. Derek and I are colleagues. Nothing more. Then why did you spend last weekend with him at Rebecca Thornton's family cabin? Her face went white. How do you... The photos sync to our shared tablet, Vanessa. You've been documenting your own affair on our family cloud account. I kept my voice calm, clinical. I've seen everything, the trips, the gifts, the necklace you hide when you come home. She sat back down heavily like her legs couldn't support her anymore. Nathan, Don't. I held up my hand. Don't lie to me again. We're past that. Silence stretched between us. I could see her running through options, calculating which approach might work. Denial was off the table. Anger? Unlikely to help. That left contrition. Right on cue, the tears started. I never meant for this to happen, she said, her voice cracking. Derek and I, it just evolved. I was unhappy, lonely. You were always working, always tired. He made me feel alive again. He made you feel useful. There's a difference. I sat down across from her. Did you know about the others? Rebecca Thornton? Dr. Okonkwo from the ER? Her face shifted. What others? Your special relationship isn't as special as you thought. Derek has a pattern. You're not his girlfriend, Vanessa. You're his healthcare marketing connection. Once that sponsorship deal closes on Friday, your usefulness decreases significantly. That's not true. Derek loves me. He's going to leave. Leave what? He's not married. He has nothing to leave except his other affairs. I leaned forward. Open your eyes. He targeted you because you could help his business. Everything else was just packaging. She shook her head, but I could see doubt creeping into her expression. The seed was planted. I don't believe you. You don't have to believe me. Believe the evidence. I stood up. The grand opening is Friday. All three of you will be there. You, Rebecca, Sarah. Derek's going to juggle his entire portfolio in one room, in front of his investors and business contacts and everyone he's been trying to impress. What are you going to do? I'm going to give everyone a clear picture of who they're celebrating. I walked toward the bedroom. You have 2 days to decide which side you want to be on when it all comes out. Nathan, wait. I closed the door behind me. In the darkness of our bedroom, the same bedroom where she'd welcomed Derek while I worked nights, I let myself feel the full weight of what was happening. The marriage was over. That much was clear. But the ending hadn't been written yet. Friday would be the final chapter. I pulled out my phone and texted Tammy, "We need to meet tomorrow. I have a plan." Her response came immediately. "I'm ready. Name the time and place." 2 more days. In 2 more days until Derek Morrison's coronation became his collapse. Thursday morning, I met Tammy at a diner 15 miles outside town. Neutral territory, no chance of running into anyone connected to a late form or the hospital. We took a booth in the back corner, ordered coffee we barely touched, and got to work. "Walk me through the technical setup for the grand opening," I said. Tammy pulled out her phone, opened a notes app. The main event space has a projector system connected to a laptop. Derek gives his speech, cues the slideshow. Everything runs from the grand opening materials shared drive. Simple setup, minimal security. Who has access to that drive? All staff with gym email accounts, the marketing team. Vanessa, actually. She uploaded the sponsorship announcement graphics last week. Tammy smiled grimly. And me. I manage the scheduling software, which means I have admin access to most of the shared systems. Can you add content to the slideshow without anyone noticing? If I do it right before the event, yes. Derek never checks the presentation himself. He has the marketing coordinator handle it. As long as the file names look legitimate, nobody will review them until they're already on screen. I thought about that. The opportunity was clear. Insert evidence into the presentation, let it play in front of everyone Derek was trying to impress. Maximum exposure, maximum witnesses, minimum chance for him to spin or deflect. But I needed to be careful. Too aggressive, and I'd look like the villain. Too subtle, and the impact would be lost. What kind of content can the system handle? Images, definitely. Video if it's properly formatted. The slideshow is supposed to run automatically during the cocktail hour, then Derek takes over for the live presentation. Tammy considered. If you want something to appear during his speech, I can time it to specific slides. I want the evidence to speak for itself. Photos with timestamps, multiple women, multiple locations, clear patterns. I pulled out my phone, started scrolling through my collection. I have images of Derek with Vanessa at the cabin, Derek with Rebecca in the parking structure, screenshots of his car at my house from Greg's doorbell cam. That's damning, but it's not devastating. Tammy leaned forward. What would really destroy him is if the women themselves realize the truth at the same moment, in front of everyone. How do we make that happen? All 3 of them will be there Friday, Vanessa as the marketing partner, Rebecca as the investor's wife, Dr. Okonkwo as a VIP guest. Tammy's eyes sharpened. If the slideshow revealed the pattern, photos of Derek with each of them, clearly romantic, clearly overlapping, they'd all see it simultaneously. They'd all realize they've been played. And Derek would be standing in front of a room full of investors and business contacts when it happened. Exactly. He couldn't spin it, couldn't deny it. The evidence would be projected 10 feet tall while he watched his reputation collapse. I considered the implications. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about dismantling a predator's entire operation. Derek had built his success on lies and manipulation. He'd weaponized charm, exploited trust, and discarded people when they were no longer useful. He deserved to experience what he'd done to others. There's something else, Tammy said quietly. Something I haven't told you yet. What? She hesitated, looking down at her coffee. Last year, after the Patricia situation, Derek's lawyer sent threatening letters to everyone who might have talked. Standard intimidation tactics. Claims of defamation, threats of lawsuits, insinuations about mental instability. You mentioned that before. What I didn't mention is that one of those letters went to me. She met my eyes. I knew about the affair. I'd tried to warn Patricia's husband before things got worse. Derek found out. The lawyer painted me as a disgruntled employee with a vendetta, threatened to destroy my career if I said anything publicly. But you're helping me anyway. Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because what he does is wrong. Because someone needs to stop him, and I've spent 2 years waiting for someone brave enough to try. She straightened. You're that person, Nathan. You didn't crumble when your world fell apart. You got organized, you got strategic. That takes strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt hollowed out, running on determination and coffee and the cold clarity of betrayal. But I understood what she meant. Derek had underestimated me because I was quiet, unassuming, easy to overlook. That was his mistake. What about Megan? I asked. She's been feeding information to both sides. She might warn Vanessa about what's coming. Tammy nodded. I've thought about that. Megan Hollister has her own agenda. She wants Vanessa's job, her clients, her corner office. If Vanessa is publicly humiliated, Megan benefits. But she also doesn't want to be caught helping it happen. So she's playing both sides until she sees which way the wind blows. Exactly. She'll stay neutral until the last moment, then position herself as either a loyal friend who tried to help or a concerned colleague who had no idea. Tammy's voice carried disgust. People like Megan always land on their feet. They just make sure to step on others while doing it. I thought about my conversation with Megan at the coffee shop. The way she'd pretended sympathy while texting updates to Vanessa. The way she'd revealed just enough information to seem helpful while gathering intelligence for her own purposes. She'd been using me just like Derek had been using Vanessa. The only difference was that I'd noticed. We need to expose Megan too, I said. Not just as a cover-up artist, but as someone actively working against Vanessa while pretending to be her friend. How? She texted Vanessa during our meeting, real-time updates about what I was saying, how I was reacting. If I can get those messages, proof of her coordination, it becomes another layer of the reveal. Tammy considered. Vanessa's phone. If you could access it, the texts would be there. She guards her phone like a state secret, ever since I confronted her about the ring. What about the shared tablet? You said photos sync automatically. Do messages sync too? I stopped, thought about it. The iPad in our living room was connected to Vanessa's iCloud account. I'd seen photos sync. I'd seen calendar events sync. Messages I'd never checked. I don't know, but I can find out. If Megan's texts are there, you'd have proof of the whole conspiracy. Not just the affair, but the cover-up. Not just Derek's manipulation, but the network that enabled it. Tammy's voice grew intense. That's what makes this bigger than just a cheating spouse, Nathan. It's an entire system of people using each other, lying to each other, treating relationships like transactions. Exposing Derek is justice. Exposing the system is revolution. I felt the weight of that. What had started as a simple investigation into my wife's infidelity had become something larger, a chance to dismantle a predator's entire operation and expose the network of enablers who made it possible. Let's focus on the immediate plan, I said. Friday night, the grand opening. What do we need to prepare? Tammy pulled up a new document on her phone. First, the photos. I need them in a specific format for the slideshow. High resolution, properly labeled, organized by timestamp. Can you get them to me by tomorrow afternoon? Yes. Second, the timing. I'll set up the reveal to happen during Derek's speech, right after he announces the sponsorship deal. Maximum audience, maximum impact. What if he tries to shut it down? The AV system has a backup that runs from the cloud. Even if he unplugs the main laptop, the slideshow will continue on the secondary screen. She smiled. I may have anticipated that particular problem. You've been planning this for a while. I've been hoping for the opportunity. You gave me the excuse. She stood up, gathering her things. Tomorrow afternoon, the coffee shop on Harbor. I'll have the final technical details. You bring the evidence package. By Friday night, Derek Morrison will wish he'd never heard of Elite Form Fitness. I drove home with my mind racing. The plan was solid, but there were variables I couldn't control. Derek's reaction, Vanessa's response, the way the crowd would interpret what they were seeing. And there was still the question of what I wanted to happen after the reveal. Divorce was inevitable. I'd accepted that. But public humiliation of my wife in front of her colleagues and business contacts? Part of me wanted it. The angry, wounded part that had watched her lie to my face for months. She'd made her choices. She deserved the consequences. But another part, smaller, quieter, remembered the woman I'd married. The version of Vanessa who existed before Derek, before the lies, before everything went wrong. That woman had been real, at least for a while. Did she deserve to be destroyed along with the person she'd become? I didn't have an answer. Maybe I didn't need one. Maybe the truth just needed to come out, and the consequences would sort themselves. When I got home, Vanessa was waiting. Different energy than before, less defensive, more calculated. She'd had time to think, to strategize. "We need to talk," she said. "Okay." She sat down, gestured for me to join her. "I've been thinking about what you said. About Derek. About the other women." "And?" "I made some calls. Talked to people who know him." She paused. "You were right. About Rebecca. About the pattern." I waited. "He denied it, of course. Said you were lying, manipulating. But I know what I know." Her voice hardened. "He's been using me. The whole time." "I told you that." "You did. I didn't want to hear it." She met my eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Nathan. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now. What I did was wrong. What he did was worse." I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse versus strategic repositioning. Hard to tell the difference anymore. "What do you want, Vanessa?" "I want to help you destroy him." I hadn't expected that. "Help me how?" "I have access to his systems, his email, his calendar, his business documents. I've been helping with the marketing for months. I know where everything is." She leaned forward. "If you're planning something for the grand opening, I can make it worse. I can give you ammunition you don't even know exists." A trap or genuine alliance? I couldn't be sure. Vanessa had lied to me for months. She'd covered her tracks, maintained her deception, played the devoted wife while betraying everything we'd built. But she'd also been used, manipulated, deceived by a man who saw her as a resource rather than a person. Maybe her anger was real. Maybe her desire for revenge was genuine. "What kind of ammunition?" I asked. "Emails between Derek and his lawyer, discussing how to handle difficult situations with former partners. Payment records to women who threatened to expose him. The whole playbook." She smiled coldly. "He thinks I'm still on his side. He has no idea I've been downloading files for the past 2 days." I thought about the implications. Though if Vanessa was telling the truth, she had evidence that went far beyond affair photos. Documentation of systematic manipulation, legal intimidation, possibly even bribery. Derek Morrison wasn't just a cheater. He was potentially a criminal. "Show me," I said. Vanessa handed me a flash drive. "Everything's on there. Emails, payments, legal threats. Enough to end him." I plugged it into my laptop and started scrolling. She wasn't exaggerating. 2 years of documented manipulation, payoffs to former affairs, coordinated intimidation campaigns, even a settlement with a woman who'd threatened to go public. Derek Morrison had built his empire on silencing victims. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked. "Because he called me his healthcare connection to Rebecca." I heard the voicemail he accidentally left. Her voice cracked. "I was never special to him, just useful." Friday arrived faster than expected. I met Tammy at the coffee shop, handed over the evidence package, my photos, Vanessa's files, everything organized and time-stamped. She uploaded it to the cloud drive, tested the timing, confirmed the backup system. "It's ready," she said. "No turning back now." The grand opening started at 7. I arrived at 7:30, slipping through the crowd of investors, business owners, and local press. Vanessa was already there, standing near the bar, her expression unreadable. Rebecca Thornton stood across the room with her husband. Dr. Okonkwo chatted with a group near the entrance. Derek worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, radiating confidence. His coronation was proceeding exactly as planned. At 8 o'clock, he took the stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "This expansion represents everything I've worked toward." The slideshow started behind him. Promotional photos, testimonials, the usual marketing content. Then the screen changed. Derek's car in my driveway. Time-stamped midnight. Derek and Vanessa at the cabin. Derek and Rebecca in the parking structure. Derek and Sarah at a restaurant. Photo after photo, woman after woman, the pattern undeniable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Derek turned, saw the screen, and his face went white. "What the—" Someone shut that off. But Tammy had disabled the manual override. The slideshow continued. Emails appeared now. Payment records, legal threats. The systematic documentation of a predator's operation, projected 10 feet tall for everyone to see. Rebecca's husband stepped forward, his face dark with fury. "What is this, Morrison?" Dr. Okonkwo walked toward the exit, her expression shifting from confusion to disgust. Rebecca followed, not looking back. Investors pulled out their phones, probably calling lawyers. Derek grabbed the microphone. "This is a setup. I've been hacked. None of this is—" "It's all real," I said, stepping forward. "Every photo, every document, every timestamp. I'm Nathan Cole, your healthcare connections husband." The room went silent. Derek stared at me with pure hatred. "You've destroyed everything." "No." I walked toward the exit. "You did. I just showed everyone." Behind me, I heard Rebecca's husband demanding answers. Investors threatening lawsuits. The sound of Derek's empire collapsing under the weight of his own lies. The Elite Form sign glowed in my rearview mirror as I drove away. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to see.